Hello, everyone. It's Joy here. Wow. You almost caught me napping there. I was having a drink of water. Good afternoon from the UK. It's so good to see everyone. And today, as usual, I never know what I'm going to do. I'll confess, I've got lots of ideas floating around, in between the days, between these audio rooms. And then it all comes together just before I come on. I'm such a bad person, but I do hope that you don't operate like that. It's not a bad policy. It works in the end. It seems to work out for me. And I think I live on adrenaline. I didn't realize the role that adrenaline played in my life. It seems to keep me really like hyper and active, and it makes me just very intense. So I seem to create situations where I'm like that. But enough about me, guys. You're probably wondering what I'm going to be doing today. As usual, it's going to be on emotional intelligence, of course, but another aspect of it, because my job is always to help you to understand what emotional intelligence is. So, guys, today's topic, it's a model which you're going to absolutely love. It's one that has saved my bacon a few times. It's a good concept, which you may find mind-blowing. It may change your lives forever from this point onwards. I hope it does. And yeah, you're going to have to tell me at the end if that's the case or not. But I'm going to be diving into a very compelling communication model. It was developed back in the 1950s, and it's a way of thinking that's changed my life, as I said, and it's probably changed a lot of my relationships too. Now, you might have heard of the word ego states, EGO and states, or you may not have. But the ego is a part of us which goes out in the world and does things. It tends to be linked to personality. But for this particular model, we're looking at us having three different positions that we can operate from when it comes to communication. You might not believe it, but sometimes we act from the parental position. Sometimes we act from the adult position. And sometimes we act from the child position. So there are three places that we can be operating from without even realizing it. It's kind of subconscious, okay? And it's a lot of stuff from childhood, the way we've been raised, things that we've seen that we have absorbed like a sponge. And we've almost decided that's how a human being has to be. And we go out in the world and we behave that way. And when we come in contact with other human beings, I always say that's when it gets really, really complicated. So I want to remind you guys that to share the room, share the love, because I know that if your colleagues and your friends become more emotionally intelligent and understand all of this, it's going to make your life a lot easier. So from a purely selfish position, just make sure that the people around you can keep you happy. Did I say that? No. But anyway, share the room, guys. The one thing that I'm really, really enjoying about the audio rooms every week is that it's becoming like being around my friends. And when I'm around friends, I relax, which is a good thing. Okay. So I get more and more cheekier and funnier and anything else and silly, but it's because I feel comfortable. So thank you guys for making me feel comfortable. Right. So did you know that we are all experiencing and also manifesting our personalities on a daily basis? I'm sure you're semi-aware of it. Sometimes we try to hide things, but these things do seep through the floorboards, as I call it, and people begin to see it. And they see it because they notice the way that we're behaving. They also pick up on the way that we think, our kind of thought patterns and our habits and our speech. And they also notice it because of our feelings. Okay. So our feelings are critical. So I'm sure you know that. Okay. But if you didn't know it, I want you to strap yourselves in today, guys, because as I said, this episode may blow your mind. It may blow your mind and it may change your life forever. And at this point, I wish I had some of that really scary music, the stuff from horror films or from a Superman film. I just wish I did, but I haven't. That's life. So the reason why this communication model is going to really do it for you is because it's been a lifesaver for me. As you know, I am an emotional skills trainer and coach. That's fine. Emotional intelligence is the word. But also, I have amazing, dare I say it? That's showing off, isn't it? But I'm going to say it. Amazing therapeutic skills, because I spent 17 plus years in the therapy space working with clients. And I'm now moving across to working with business owners and CEOs and founders who are trying to build their business, but they also notice that their emotional state and stuff around their emotions is dragging them back. And we all know what it's like to encounter a business situation that throws us off kilter. And for that moment, or even for that hour, or even for half of that day, we can be in a bad space. So I want you to have the skills that you need to pull you back into alignment so you can continue with your business and you can be successful. So that's where I'm at. But the reason why I love this model, okay, is because it's a communication model. And it helps me personally to decode and to improve my day and to improve my interactions with everyone. And I noticed once I learned this that it helps me when I just go to the shop and I'm speaking to a shop assistant. It especially helps me when I'm speaking to my sister. Even though she's my sister, we still get at crossed purposes sometimes. And it's even helped me to have a better relationship with my next door neighbor. And believe me, my next door neighbor is challenging. Okay. If anyone sort of like understands that and identifies with neighbors, just give me the thumbs up. Yeah. Yeah. Great, guys. So neighbors can be difficult to be around, but it's helped me with my neighbor. It really, really has. It's also helped me to feel more confident and to get into what I consider to be a confident space, one where I can deal with confrontations and not freeze. Because when it comes to this fight, flight sort of process that we have when we're stressed, I go into one called freeze. I actually freeze. I look like a tree. So I'm like that rabbit stuck in front of the headlights. I really just freeze. So this particular technique has also helped me to be more confident in what appears to be confrontational situations. And the last reason why I love this particular model is it's freed my voice. And I know you're hearing my voice right now, but I'm a shy person. Um, I have been a shy person. It was a tag that I carried throughout a lot of my childhood into my late teens. But shyness is something which I can now do. It plays out occasionally, but I'm also a very confident, and it's recognizing that I can be both. So again, these three things have been a lifesaver for me, an absolute lifesaver. And the last thing, the reason why I love this particular model is it's helped me to keep my mouth shut sometimes and recognize when I'm about to put my foot into something. Can you imagine me doing that? Putting my foot into things? So I promise you by the end of this show today, guys, that you will begin to feel differently about things. And if it doesn't, I promise to buy you a coffee. Yeah. Is that a deal, guys? Give me the thumbs up if that's a deal. Now, the model that I'm referring to, should be a drum roll here, shouldn't there? But the model is called the transactional analysis model. Now, some of you might recognize that. You might be saying, oh, Joy, I've heard that before, but not the way I tell it. Seriously. Now, this model came out in the 1950s, okay, created by a psychotherapist, a psychiatrist called Eric Berne. Berne. He's got 2 books out there, and you might have come across it. I'm Okay and You're Okay. Interesting title. And the second book that you might have come across by Eric Berne is The Games That People Play. What an exciting title. That in itself pulled me in. I do remember at the time picking up his book and thinking, wow, that is such a great title. Okay. So before I go any further on that, I want to encourage you to share the room, invite your colleagues, your friends, whoever into this room, because they might learn something from this, as I said, that might help you to have better relationships with them, but only because they now are equally emotionally intelligent as you are. So that would be lovely. So the way you do that, guys, there are 3 dots at the top of this box. If you hit that, it helps you to share it on your page, and there you'll be whisked off and they will come back and they'll join us here. That would be great, wouldn't it? So also I want to say that I have a newsletter as well. I go very, very deep into these actual room topics before I come on here, and I can't give you enough of it in an hour. So I want to give you the emails to help you to look at some of the PDFs that I've got as well, and just go through the information and go a little bit deeper. So remember that I have that newsletter as well. And the way in which you can join that is to go to my profile, look underneath it directly, and hit the button that says contact me. It will take you off to that lovely page where you can just join the community. So emotional intelligence made simple. That's the way I like to look at it. Today, as I said, I want you to look at this idea of transactions and the way in which human beings are, and that we are having transactions every single minute of the day with another human being, whether we like it or not. That's just the way it goes. So every interaction is a transaction. Now, give me the thumbs up if you think that transactions only involve money. It doesn't always have to be about money. This particular theory called transactional analysis is about transactions, but it's about communication between human beings. And right now, a transaction is taking place between me and you. Yeah, it really is. Not just the fact that we're communicating, even though I can't see you. The transaction's happening, and I'm actually having a transaction with you where you are giving me your time. Can you believe it? Time has become a currency. And in today's world, it's definitely a currency. So I am going to give you some really interesting information, stuff that you can apply in your real life, and you're going to give me your time today. I'm so grateful for your time. Thank you guys for giving me your time. I really appreciate it. So yeah, a transaction is taking place. We don't walk around with a bag of coins or a big suitcase full of, money. We don't do that. But we are keeping an internal check and an internal balance about the transactions that we're having with human beings. We really, really are recording every single human encounter that we have. And that sounds exhausting because it is. It can be exhausting if we're going to be like weighing things up all of the time. How should I be? What should I say? That is an exhausting place to be. The transactional analysis model by Eric Berne is also called the PAC model, the PAC model, which is interesting. And that's acknowledging that there's a parent role that you can step into, there is an adult role that you can step into, and there is a child role that you can step into. Now, this again, as I said, it's all very subconscious. You're not doing it deliberately, but it comes out whether you like it or not. Okay. And my job today is to try and help you to see that perhaps these buttons are being pressed, especially the child mode. For me, I know that that can get pressed very, very easily, but I also counteract it by going back to my adult mode. So yeah, that's what you're going to find out today. Believe me, I love all this stuff, but if I can communicate to you in a way that makes you go out there and utilize it, then I am a really happy bunny. I really am. So guys, I'm just going to remind you about emotional intelligence just quickly, some of the areas that you will be improving on and some of the things that you might want to strengthen as well. So self-awareness, big umbrella term, isn't it? But understanding how you are, what your emotions are, how your buttons get triggered, how you can control them, how you can communicate more effectively. And that can be this thing called self-regulation, another posh word for basically controlling your emotions. I don't believe we can control it. We try to manage it. Sometimes we are in situations where the emotion has to do its job. And I want you, especially when it comes to feeling stressed, to recognize, am I getting this rush of adrenaline because I really do have to save my life? Is there really something out there that's dangerous to me? Now, hopefully, a lot of you are not surrounded by lions, tigers, and bears, okay? That would definitely trigger your stress response. But human beings can trigger that. Being in relationships trigger that too. The sensation is the same. For me, it's my heart racing, it's my stomach churning, it can be me getting quite nervous and shaky, it can be sweating sometimes. These are all of the physical symptoms that you're going to get when your stress response is triggered. So, this particular model, this transactional model, is going to help you to maintain your adult state. So be excited, guys, be excited. And can I remind you to share the room, share the love, guys, because like I said, we want to have more people around us that have these skills. The more, the merrier. It's going to make everybody's life easier. So you're probably waiting for the story because every week I do a story. I know that's why you come to see me, but this story is going to be a good one. And the story, again, is me being very open and very upfront with you that stories do get to the heart of human beings very, very quickly. You know, we can have long, posh words and have lots of theories, but I've read lots of theories and they do nothing for me. They go in one ear and they come out the other. So for me, my job and my pleasure really is to look at these ideas and just think, oh, how can I explain it to my community today? How can I explain that? So today's one is going to be trying to explain this PAC model, parent, adult, child model, which is also called transactional analysis. And like I said, I prepare a lot of notes. So join my newsletter. I will have much more information around this topic there too. I've got a newsletter in my email box ready to go out to you guys, actually. Right, now I'm ready for the story. Let's find it, story time. Now, this model, as I said, it's about me having three different positions that I can operate from: the parent, the adult, or the child. And when I meet you, I'm in conversation with you. And guess what? You have your three positions too. You have your parent, your adult, and your child position that you can operate from. So the actual title of, I suppose, the games that people play by Eric Berne was just acknowledging that it can be a bit of a game that people enter into. I push one button, it pushes you in another way, and vice versa. You push a button and it triggers something else in me. And I'm going to tell this by way of a story. So I want you to imagine that we've got a three-story building. It's made of glass, okay, and it has the ability to change colors. Now, there are three floors. Each floor will emit a different light and it represents a different ego state, as I said. Now, across the road, there's another building. Okay. This is when you encounter somebody else. They have their own stuff going on and they've got an identical setup, a three-story building with three lights that can be achieved. So, Anita is the lady that's looking out from the top floor of the first building. And she is in her parent mode, and we're going to call that green, a very soothing green color. It's gentle, it's nurturing, and it's just pulsating there. Now, Anita looks across the way and she sees somebody else. She's going to see Daniel, basically. But for the moment, Anita is in her adult, a sort of parent state, the green state. She can also switch to the amber state, that orange, yellow, amber state, which is the middle state, which is her adult. And this is a place of logic and rationality, one that I try to do as often as I can. And then Anita on the ground floor is her child mode. Now, this is symbolized by, let's say, the red color, and it can shift between just a steady, bright red color, but it can also begin to flash and pulsate when she enters one of her different child states. So there's a rebellious child that she can be, and there's also a compliant child. Right, guys. So Anita's looking out of her transactional tower block. She's looking out of that, and across the way, she can see another building called Daniel. And she's sending out her nice little beam of light. And she's saying to him, Daniel, please, could you help me out? Do we have a timeline for this project? That's her question. Now, she looks across the way. She was talking from, she felt, her adult place, okay, from the middle floor, the amber light. She's expecting, obviously, Daniel to respond from his amber place. She's expecting that, but guess what happens? She suddenly sees all this red light. The bottom floor, the ground floor, this red light has come on and it's just flashing away like crazy. She's like, what's happening? So Daniel says, do you know what, Anita? I really, really don't know. I don't know. What do you mean? Do I have a timeline for this project? You are always asking me for timelines, and I just don't have enough resources to meet your deadlines. So, right, that was his response, which is very, very interesting. She wasn't expecting that. And again, the sirens are flashing, the lights are going off. There has been a miscommunication between Anita and Daniel. Now, Anita's pretty sensible. She kind of just noticed that very quickly, and she decides to move to her parent position. She goes up to the top floor, the parent floor, and she gives out this lovely green light. She says, oh dear, I'd better go into comforting mode, because that's what parents do, isn't it? And she sends out her lovely parental glow to Daniel. She says, I understand the pressure that you're under. I really, really do. So let's see how we can reallocate some resources to make this more manageable for you. And then she says that the red light in Daniel's tower block goes out, which is good. And I think he resorts to his adult state, which is the middle one. So everything's been restored. This is just a way of us looking at the fact that we have these three positions that we can go into, and we never know when we're triggering somebody else's child or when we're triggering their parent. Hopefully, we're going to try and trigger their adult so we can all be rational and logical. But we all know that we're not like that, even me. And I'll give you an example of my child state. Me and my partner, we've been together for 21 years. I've lost track, but it's a long time. And I remember when we first moved in together, we were both going to work at the same time, and he was in the bathroom, and I wanted him to get out. Now, it felt as though he was deliberately staying in the bathroom, and I got more and more annoyed. And I wanted to say, excuse me, could you please leave the bathroom so that I could come in there and brush my teeth and do all the things I need to do? But it didn't come out that way. As I opened my mouth, I heard myself being very shouty and very critical and saying, for God's sake, get out of the bathroom. Why do you always do this? You know I come in here at this time. And I was actually shocked at my response. I thought, wow, that's a bit powerful, Joy. He wasn't doing anything wrong. But I recognized that I was in my child state. So it happens, guys. And I want you just to recognize that that might be happening for you in different places. We're going to have our parent state triggered, or our child state triggered, or our adult state triggered. Now, if this is making sense, okay, give me the thumbs up. I like to make sure I'm on the right lines. Now, if you're liking what I'm saying, remember to share the room, guys. Share the love. 3 dots at the top of this box, and that will help to share this room with your network. And that would be nice, because as I said, if they get more emotionally intelligent, guess what? It makes my life easier, your life easier. The world is a happy place. Don't we all want that? Right, so let's go into this real life example. Yes. How does it look? Now, self-awareness is what I'm going to talk about. Imagine there's a business leader and she's called Sarah, and she's in a strategy meeting, and a colleague has proposed a drastic change that's going to challenge the way that the company's traditional methods are. Now, Sarah feels this surge of frustration, and she finds herself on the verge of just shutting the proposal down. She feels that come over her, because emotions are powerful. But somehow she manages to notice that. She recognizes that instinctual response, that defensive behavior of hers, and she can feel that it's coming from her child place, because the child place is an emotional place. We do need it. I don't want you to knock it. We do need to have that energy. But she recognizes that, and she takes a deep breath, and she decides to respond from her adult ego state. So she then says, Could you just present some data?" And it just kind of calms everything down. She doesn't get into one of her, "This is not gonna happen because this is the way we've always done things." She says, "Could you just present some more data about the proposed changes that you're thinking about?" And it maintains their relationship. So that was one way of her becoming completely self-aware of what was happening. Let's go on to the next one where you're regulating your emotions. This is another scenario. Imagine a guy called David, and he's discovered a very critical error in a project, and he's talking to his team members. Now he can feel himself beginning to get really angry. Again, this surge of energy, and he wants to really just have a go at everyone. But his emotional intelligence training kicks in. This whole thing around this PAC model, PAC model, this transactional analysis model kicks in. And he realizes that he would be reacting from the wrong place. He realizes that he might be being a little bit childish if he's going to let his anger take over. And he starts to self regulate again. He calms himself down and he approaches the team member from an adult state. So you're probably getting the picture, guys, that you should be trying to go back to your adult state as often as you can. And now he's able to approach that team member and calmly explain what the error is, what the impact could possibly be, and how those mistakes can be avoided in the future. So this is really just to help you to work out that we're in and out of these interactions with human beings all of the time. So the next one could be around motivation, the third strand of emotional intelligence. Let's have a scenario. Let's think about a young woman called Anna, and she's facing some financial challenges with her business. It's not meeting the numbers that have been projected, and the investors, they're getting quite nervous. She's feeling that external pressure. So Anna is very, very driven, and she's very, very much in alignment with her adult state. So despite the fact that she can feel her emotions like swimming around her, she manages to pull herself back, and she manages to identify the areas that can be improved. And she talks to these people who are obviously funding her company in a really kind of relaxed way. And it just helps to, instead of being frantic and worried and, as I said, anxious, she manages to pull herself back and talk to her investors in a way that reassures them about her commitment. So wouldn't we all like to operate from that place and be able to pull ourselves back when we can? I don't know. I hope those two examples are good. I've got a couple more, but I'm not going to go through them all. Otherwise, we'll be here all day. And I'd love to hear what you guys have to say as well. But within the strands of emotional intelligence, I want you to recognize that empathy kicks in, and you have to recognize when you're channeling that too. And then social skills, which again is just us working with other people and not only knowing what's going on for us emotionally, what the emotion is, what we're going to do with it, how we're going to apply it, but how it works when we meet another human being. And I always jokingly say to you, that's when it all seems to go wrong. Back to the plot, guys. So, yes, I'm hoping that you're seeing that this model might be a way in which you can start applying it to your own life. And it's not just a business model. I'm sure you're recognizing now that there might be a way of you applying it to your applying it to your family life. So you've got your parental state, your adult state, and your child state. And they just really can be at play whether we like it or not. Now, imagine you're an actor. Imagine you're an actor going for a role. Now, you'd probably be saying, what's my motivation, guys, for this role? You're asking the director. So he might say, okay, guys, I want you to be a nurturing parent. And this character is very empathic, very comforting, very protective. But you do sometimes have to show the darker side of the parent because they can be overbearing and excessively protective sometimes. We've all heard about helicopter parents, haven't we? And the helicopter parent might sound like, oh, I need to protect them from harm. Oh, they can't handle this on their own. And I also want you to notice that you can channel this controlling parent too. the person that is always saying you have to follow the rules. So that might be the way that you could direct someone to step into the parent role. Imagine that, again, we're auditioning someone now for the adult role. What's my motivation? You're going to ask. Well, your motivation is that under pressure, I want you to be logical. I also want you to be able to assess things thoroughly without letting your emotions run away with you. That might be the way in which the director would instruct the adult. So you're going for this role. How can I channel this child? What's my motivation for playing this child role, director? Well, okay, there are two states I want you to think about when you're doing this. There's the compliant child, and then there's the rebellious child. Mm. So I'm going to tell you some more about that. Remember to share the room because, yes, this might be an interesting place for other people to listen to. That child place, which I also said, I recognize when it's happening to me. I've recognized it in my relationship with my partner, and I do something about it. Okay. So the compliant child, the director says, I want you to be very eager to please. I want you to try and avoid conflict wherever you can. In fact, I want you to just keep a lid on all of your emotions that might upset people. And I want you to make everybody happy. Wow. Interesting. And the rebellious child part, remember, please, that there are two ways that you can be the child. The second one is rebellious. Now, this person is fiercely independent and they defend their rights and their boundaries, and they're not afraid to push back and fight back against injustices. The rebellious child can be very interesting because we do need to channel that when we're trying to stand up for ourselves and when we're trying to stand up for other people. So it's not a bad thing. So those are the ways in which I would encourage you to perhaps think about those roles. If you were going up for an audition as an actor, you would say, what's my motivation? How am I supposed to step into this role? And those three clues that I gave you are the ways in which you can step into that role. So I do hope that is making sense, guys. And remember, I over prepare. I have lots of information. If you want more, the newsletter is going to be a good way for you to get that extra information. So please join my mailing list. Go to my profile, look just underneath my face, and you'll be able to see a small line where you can actually join my mailing list and do that because I've got one lined up that is ready to go. And I want to talk about this one because this is such a deep, deep theory which can be applied in real life if you're able to pull yourself back and work out, what am I being in this moment? Am I acting from my parent mode, which can be nurturing? It can also be quite bossy and quite punishing. But am I acting from this role? Because when you do, sometimes it pushes the button of the other person, and they have now got two positions that they can respond from, either their adult state or their child state. And I forgot to say, they can also, funnily enough, respond from their parent state. So you know what it's like when two parents think they're right and they're talking to each other. It can be quite interesting. I'm right. No, I'm right. No. So you can actually trigger their parent state. But when you understand which one's in operation, it gives you a chance to save the relationship because first of all, you recognize that they're not doing things deliberately. We all have a lot going on inside of us, which comes from our backgrounds as children, from what we've seen, the roles that we've been taught to play, the models that we're following. And I think it's important now as adults to recognize, how can I stop that from happening? Right. What can we do then? How can we be in good relationships and have good relationships with people? And here are 10 bullet points to help you as well. 10 ways in which you can apply this PAC model in a very, very practical way. Okay. First of all, I hope you've kind of worked out that I want you to understand that we do have this thing called ego states. Recognize that you can operate from one of three positions. You have these ego states, the parent, the adult, the child, and you can operate from either of those. And it's going to skew the way in which you interact with people in a positive way or in a negative way. So being aware of that. So self-awareness is the next thing. That's the big umbrella term for being able to observe your own thoughts, your own feelings, and the sensations that are happening inside of you. Because you might notice sometimes that you get quite defensive. I get defensive, I notice it. And it can be my child state just kicking in. Sometimes it's my rebellious child as well. Okay. Be mindful about your communication. As I said, I want you to try and step into your adult mode. Try not to be judgmental. Try to channel that rationality and that logic as well. Recognize that transactions are happening all of the time between us, whether you like it or not. And you might be getting the expected response, which is great, or the unexpected response, which isn't so great. And look out for what I would call ulterior motives too. The fifth thing is that we can have crossed transactions. So look at the conversations that you're having when they don't quite go the way that you want. And that will give you a chance to assess your own position and also assess the position in the other person as well. The sixth thing I would like you to do is to make sure you use these I statements. So, I statements are really you owning your stuff and not blaming other people. And, you can say, I feel this when you do X, Y, Z. It stops us from being in that position where we're blaming other people. The next thing I want you to do is practice that active listening. And I've spoken about that at length before, but I cannot stress how much you should learn to do the active listening as well, which can be using your body language, not just verbal. Number 8, as a way in which you can start practicing this, is checking for those hidden messages, looking at the ulterior messages. Sometimes we can switch to sarcasm, which is an interesting communication style, one that I'm quite good at. I've been very, very good at it. So sarcasm is a hidden way of communicating with people. It can also be not a very nice way of communicating with people, but I recognize when I'm doing that and try and move back to my adult state. The ninth one is giving out these compliments, and they call it within the transactional analysis model, it's called strokes, strokes. It's not about touching, but it's about like a tick, 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 tick. You've recognized someone, you've given them some words of encouragement, or you've appreciated what they've done and you said something really pleasant. So those are the ways in which you can start to apply this. Those are the 10 points that I do want you to think about. And just get into that and some more details, because I was really curious about this thing about the hidden messages. The one I would love to talk about is managing those crossed transactions. Now, defensiveness, you've probably heard of, passive aggressive, unresponsive people, misinterpretation. Supposing you were giving some constructive feedback to somebody, you were operating from your adult state, but the other person started feeling defensive. They're responding from their child state. It's going to really escalate very, very quickly into a horrible situation. So you may need to think on your feet and think, okay, perhaps I'm going to have to channel my nurturing parent in order to bring this back to a pleasant place. You try and channel that parent state, and you might reassure that person and sort of say, well, give me some feedback. Help me to understand this. And therefore the argument would be over. That was really badly done, Joy. But I'm trying to say, guys, that we get defensive and we have to recognize when that's happening. And I will be much more eloquent next time. My brain is actually, I'll tell you what's going on in my brain, I'll share it. My brain is actually annoyed with me for not making this audio room work the way I wanted it today, which was talking to you guys, which is the part that I love the best. And I know I've got two parts of me that are operating. The one that's saying, Joy, keep going, no problem. And the other part of me, which is not my very nice part, saying, Joy, you've really messed up. And I don't think anyone's going to want to play with you anymore. So you can see that we all have our inner child and we also have our inner critic, and they cannot be very nice. So I'm just very transparent with you guys about what's happening for me, because if I'm trying to show you that this awareness thing is something where you have to get to, you have to be able to spot when the inner dialogue is supportive or not supportive. So guys, I want to say thank you really for being here today, and remember to join the mailing list and get more of this information, because I've had to condense it down to fit it into this time frame. If you go to my profile, if you hit the little button underneath my head, that will take you to the page where you can join and I can get more interesting information out to you. And I want to thank you all, the ones of you who've shared the room. It's been great that, and I've noticed in my feed when I go back to it and have a look, that you have been sharing the room. And I really am appreciative of that, because the more people, as I said, that understand about this concept of emotional intelligence, which is about us all operating with each other in a way that is friendly, supportive. Uh, it will just help us all to have a better way of being around each other. And I always think, on the grander scheme, the world will be a better place for us all being emotionally intelligent. So that's my spin on things. And I want to also say that just watch out for the parent state, the adult state, and the ego state. It's going to definitely improve your communication, but not just in business. The big thing is you can also apply it to your family life, to your friendships, to your personal relationships, to the relationships with your children, because you can stand back and you can try and work out, where is this person coming from? It's going to make you more empathic. And I think it's going to make you more self compassionate too, and just help you overall to have much better relationships. So I think I'm going to wind things up. DM me, say, Joy, I wanted to ask you this, or Joy, I wanted to say this, because I would love to hear what you have to say. And on that happy note, guys, I'm going to let you go. 3 minutes from class, a little bit earlier than usual. But thank you so much for joining me today. I hope this has been an interesting, eye opening experience for you. Those of you that are in the audience, just give me a bit of a clue. Was it interesting? Thumbs up, hearts, I don't mind. I will actually improve. So there's some hearts, which is good. So, yep, that's not bad. It was an interesting one. My job is to apply all of this emotional intelligence information that's out there in a way that is friendly, user friendly, that you can apply in real life, and it's simple. So I call it emotional intelligence made simple. I can't share everything on the LinkedIn platform, so I email you guys and I send you stuff through, and it gives us a really good way of communicating, with each other. So I've had some feedback. Deba, you are being a parent to me right now. I can feel that kind of parental love and warmth and nurturing. So thank you. I really, really do appreciate that. And can you see how that worked? Just that tiny little bit of information has lifted my energy, changed my whole attitude. I can feel the energy in my body changing just on the basis of what Debashis said. So thank you so much. That was beautiful. And the best way we're going to do that, to set up that lovely flow of information between us, is for us to be able to communicate and to talk to each other. So I'm going to say, on that happy note, have a really, really good afternoon, everyone. A very good morning if it's morning for you, or a very good evening. And I hope you can join me again next week, because I'm going to have some more interesting topics that we can talk about, ways that you can improve your emotional intelligence. Look at the ones that you have and improve the ones that could do with a bit of brushing up, so that you can go out there and have good relationships. And if you're in business, I want you to recognize that it's so important, because your clients are going to be the people that you really, really do have to impress and to be on good terms with. And then also the people in your team, because it takes more than one person to make a good company. You can't operate on your own. You're as good as your team. Thank you so much for joining me today. Remember to DM me with information. I want you to be resilient. You have to channel your energy in whatever way you can. Get over your disappointment, get over that old thought, and move on to a fresh one. So have a good morning, a good afternoon, a good evening, wherever you are. And we will catch up next week, because there'll be more from me, guys. So I shall say my goodbyes. See you soon.